Okay, here we have our next project that we're going to be scrapping out. I got these at an auction, and there are 14 units. There's one there, and here's one with the cover off that shows you what's inside it. I know I got some glare coming in here, so I'll kind of show you here. These units are all full of looks like all kinds of outlets and breakers and all kinds of wires. What these are were training units for a local college that we have around here that they no longer use them or upgraded or whatever, but they put these up for auction on a public website, and I was the winning bidder, and I got all of them for like all 14 of them. You know, I got my truck full of them here. There's a whole bunch of them here. There's a total of 14 of them, and we're going to break them apart. I was looking online and I seen them, and they showed some pretty good pictures of it. And this is what they were showing. You know, they showed several different photos, and I was just kind of looking at the wire. You know, they got these connectors here. Some of them have connectors like this with this big wire here, but most of them have this type of a connection, like right here. And I was kind of figuring that there's probably about 1.5 pounds of wire stripped in there, not to mention, you know, the steel and the breakers and anything else that could have like copper in it. So I was kind of figuring that they're probably worth about, to me, $3 or $4 a piece. So 3 times 14, and I put my bid up there, and I actually got them for, they had them in lots of 7. So 2 lots. I got the one for $18 and the other for $9. And then of course I had to pay, you know, 12%, I think, buyer's fee, and then 7% city tax. So the whole bill was, I'll show you a picture of the bill. It's like $32 or something. Okay, before we get started breaking these boxes down, I was going to show you my latest shop cleanup, and I took in my scrap. Most of it was from that motor, about 850 pounds, and I took in 1,140 pounds, and it's still paying 6 cents a pound, and that brought me in $68. So we'll go ahead and add that to our collection of money. And then I turned around and went and sold all that copper that I had. Most of that was from the motor also. And if you look here, I had 88 pounds that they paid $340. They had to write 2 papers out because they made a mistake, so they compensated that. And the 2 crowns that I had, I didn't take the plastic coverings off of them, so they told me I could either take it home or else they'll give me $3 a pound for it. So I just took the $3 a pound. And then I also had a tub, 119 pounds of aluminum, which paid 60 cents a pound, for a total of 560, actually 69, because they give me 5 more bucks. So $569. I know people like to see this, so that's why I show it. All right, let's get on to breaking them boxes down. Okay, so before we start this, let's go ahead and weigh these boxes, just a couple of them, to see what kind of weight they are. It's all hooked up, and she's off the ground, and it comes in at 76 pounds. All right, let's do another one. All right, so this one is basically the same. It just has different cable set up. So we'll weigh that one also. All right, it's off the ground. Comes in at 79 pounds. So they're about the same weight. All right, let's break them apart and see what kind of money we can make out of them. All right, so let's just do the simple math on breaking this down. I showed you the receipts. I paid a total of $32.57 for the whole thing. There was 14 of them. That comes to $237 each. They each weighed 75 pounds. That comes to $1,050 for 14 of them. 75 times 14. And if I was to just take it in for scrap at 6 cents a pound, 1,050 pounds would equal $63. So I have almost doubled my money right there if I don't break them down. And if you want to break it down per pound, I paid 3 cents a pound for these. So that was a pretty good auction buy. Let's break them down and see if we can make some good money on them. Now I'll keep all these screws separate because a lot of times on outlets they're made of brass or copper or sometimes steel. But we'll figure it out. None of these screws are sticking to the magnet, so they're more than likely brass or copper. So I'm gonna have to separate all of these from all of these outlets. I'm gonna get a lot of brass. I'm gonna guess probably close to a pound of brass with everything in here. With aluminum. A little bit of copper and brass in each of those. So here's what we're looking at on the inside. This box is all welded together down in the corners there, so I can't really take it apart. So I'm gonna have to just reach in there, try to unscrew all them screws. But there's a lot of wire in there, a lot of brass. So I think we're gonna do pretty good here. I'm not an electrician. I have no idea what that is. That looks like copper. Let's give that a scratch test. And yeah, that's copper. I have no idea what that is, but it's got copper in it. That must be aluminum. So there must be some steel behind that. That's aluminum. So yeah, we'll have to set this aside and figure out what it is. It's pretty darn heavy. So we'll set that aside and we'll keep on getting all these wires out of here. I get those little bus bars out of there, and I'll pretty much just get the wires, and there's a little bit of aluminum in there, a couple little things that we need to get out, and the rest is just pretty much steel. Now I know you can break these down. There's some, sometimes they're made of steel and sometimes they've got brass in them. All right, so that pretty much empties this box out. There's no more copper in there. There might be a few brass screws in there. One brass washer. Everything else is steel. All right, so we got all this wire. We got to clip all these brass fitting or clippings off here. All right, so I'm going to break apart one of these just to see if it's worth getting the brass out of it. I tested it off of this other one here, and the screws of brass. I'm going to break one apart and see what's in it. There's plastic out here. All right, so this is what came out of one of those light switches. So this stuff here is steel. All right. So this is what we'll get out of brass for each of those light switches. I don't know what it weighs, maybe an ounce, I don't know. But we'll keep on collecting and stacking. I guess we could break one of these apart, see if there's anything in this. right, so there's a little transformer in there. It's got copper in it, or aluminum, that's steel. These are, I'm not sure if they're copper or brass shaft. All right, so these are copper, and they have silver contacts on them. That looks brass. No, that's copper. These are aluminum. Thing. All right, so we'll put that in the copper. That will go in the copper. This is brass. These are aluminum. And these are steel. So all of this and a little bit of the brass came out of one of these. All right, so we got this tare weighted. So the one that I broke down is right here. It's copper. Throw that in there. We got 2/10 of a pound, or 3 ounces. All right, let's go ahead and strip all this wire real quick and see how much we get out of it. I was estimating about 1.5 pounds, I believe, when I was bidding on this. So this is all 12 gauge stranded wire. It's not going to be the easiest stuff to strip, but we'll get it. All right, let's turn the scale on. We can get it all in there. Get all that wire in there, and we come up with 245. It's almost 2.5 pounds of copper wire in that whole setup. That's a pretty good deal because I was basing my bid on about 1.5 pounds. So I think we did pretty good there. We've got about 2.5 pounds of copper that we know of, just from these breakers and the stripped wire. I have no idea about this. This thing is pretty heavy, and it's aluminum, and copper, and there's some steel in the middle of it. Let's weigh that up. A little bit of brass on the side there. All right, thing weighs 15 pounds. We've got 14 of those, and I'm betting that there's probably, I don't know, maybe I should break that down. And we're done. Boy, that's dirty. See if that, oh, that's good. That's a good chunk. We can at least scrap it and not throw it in the garbage. Copper. All right, let's weigh it up and see what we come up with. All right, let's turn the scale on. We know the tub weighs 2/10. So we'll put it on there, and we got 2.05, 2.0. So 1.8 pounds. That's like free copper. I wasn't expecting it. 1.8, 1.85, something like that. All right, that's a good deal. So we can add that to our copper. We're gonna have to do some figuring here. You know, I showed you everything, what I paid for it, how much they each cost, how much they all weighed, how much scrap price I could get if I just took them to the scrap yard, and what I paid per pound at this auction. And I'm gonna go back and do some quick calculating. Okay, so off camera, I took all those outlets, all the light switches, and I broke them down. Oh, here comes Charlotte. Here comes Charlotte. She's ready to start working. All right, thanks for the water. She's bringing me some water. Charlotte don't really like to work on camera, but she does a lot of things in the background. She sets up this chair right here and does a lot of the micro scrapping and breaks down the little transformers. She'll take care of some light switches and things like that. But in the laptop, she'll tear those down. Anything that she finds fun. And thanks for the water. Say hi to the camera. So I'll take that water. All right, and she also is responsible for keeping my shop floor clean. She's always sweeping and stuff. That's why I had to include her in the name on our channel, because she's my helpmeet. All right, getting back to this. So I broke all those light switches and everything down, and I put everything in a pile right here. And this is what we have. There's brass. I also took all those, if you remember these brass that I cut off of those wires, and I trimmed all the plastic off of them. So we got a good chunk of brass going on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the magnet and try to get out the metal. I know there's some aluminum in here, and there's some steel. This is all the aluminum I got out of this. We can weigh that up. We're gonna weigh up the brass. And then we got a little extra copper. All right, so let's go ahead and weigh this up. Tear that out. Here's the extra copper. Comes to 0.5 pounds, though. Half a pound of copper. Here's all the aluminum. That's 1.25 pounds of aluminum. And the brass comes to 0.85. Let's weigh the steel. Okay, we're coming up with 54 pounds. Okay, so I did a breakdown on those electrical boxes, and I showed you what I paid for them, the total price. They were each $273. It was 1,050 pounds. Could have got $63 just to scrap them. I paid 3 cents a pound for everything put together. Here's the breakdown of what I got out of it. 5.4 pounds of copper at the price of $340. That's $18.36. The brass, I got 0.85 pounds at $2.30 a pound. That's $1.96. The aluminum, I had 1.25 pound at 60 cents. That's 75 cents. And the steel that's left over is 54 pounds. At 6 cents, that's $3.24 for a total of $24.31 for each one of those boxes. And they take about 45 minutes. Now you got to take into consideration I was videoing this, so there was a lot of stopping and starting, so I bet I could tear one of them things apart in about 30 minutes and getting $24.34 per box. So all in all, I think that was a good buy. If you have the time to spend to do this kind of stuff, then it's a good deal. And I could either be sitting in the house watching YouTube videos or being out in the shop tearing stuff apart, making videos, and making money from the scrap. Okay, so here's one other thing that I was looking at. If you add up all the weight, we started off with 75-pound boxes, and when you add up all the weight that's left, that leaves like 13 pounds, 13 and a half pounds unaccounted for. So what happened to that? I guess I can only assume most of it went into the trash. I know I throw nuts and bolts and brackets and pieces into my shred bucket, so that's got to be some of it, but I'm guessing a majority of it's going to be trash like this. The outlets that were all smashed, all these little pieces, I'm sure they all add up, not to mention the wire casings. Yeah, but there's just a whole lot of trash involved there too. So about 13 pounds, 13 and a half pounds, something like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video on this. I got to get busy breaking these boxes down so I can get paid. Thanks for watching.